Thanks for being here today, Chad.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, could you just quickly introduce yourself to the viewers?
Yeah, my name's Chad Peters. I'm president and CEO of Ridgeline Minerals. Ridgeline is a Nevada-focused precious and base metal explorer. We focus on early stage opportunities, looking for tier one assets in the various commodities, and we've kind of evolved into a hybrid explorer in the last couple of years by bringing on major partners on multiple projects. We have over $60 million US in deals across 3 projects with NGM and South32.
Let's talk about you just hit 1 meter at 10.4 grams per ton at Swift, within sort of almost 3 meters at 7 grams per ton, starting I think 676 meters downhole. Could you tell us about the results and what it means for Swift?
Yeah, for sure. So you can see right here that we're looking at all of our projects here in Nevada. I'm going to zoom in on the Swift project, which is on the Cortez district of the Battle Mountain Eureka Trend, which is a parallel gold trend to the Carlin Trend. We have a $30 million NGM earn-in that's currently being drilled right now. I'll zoom in on that. And those results that you talked about, this is just our kind of quick summary of the project, but I'm going to cut right to it. So what's really exciting is right here, where I got my blue star, we just announced a really great intercept that was drilled by NGM this year on our first hole of the program. They hit 2.7 meters of 7 grams per ton gold, including 1.1 meters of 10.4 grams per ton gold. So this is the first instance of high-grade gold on the Swift project, and it's a really critical change for the project. We've hit widespread low-grade gold over the first 5 holes, up to 48 meters, a half a gram. But NGM had yet to hit anything that was of similar grade to other active mines in the Cortez district, which is these guys here. So the average underground grade of all of these operating mines and proven and probable reserves is about 7.3 grams per ton. So we just hit 2.7 meters of 7, which shows, okay, there is potential for an economic ore body to be defined at the Swift project. And a lot more drilling is obviously needed to get to that next step. But it's a very active district right now. If you look over to right here where I'm circling in blue, this is the PWC project. That's currently a JV between Kinross Gold and Riley Gold. It was actively drilled this year as well with assays pending. So all the way from Swift, all the way down the trend, you have multiple majors actively drilling, looking for new discoveries. And we believe a new discovery is actually emerging here at the Swift project with these recent results. So it's really exciting for us.
So, could you zoom in where we actually see the showcase drill hole?
You bet. So we're looking down the trend right now.
This was the 6th drill hole on the property, right?
Correct. Yeah. So here's what a cross section of what this looks like. As you can see,
what is the correct host rock, by the way? Could you?
There is no. I guess you could say there's multiple host rocks in the district, so it's not just a single individual host that hosts mineralization at the other mines. When you look at the green unit here, this guy right there, that green unit is the Roberts Mountain Formation. That's where the high grade intercept, which is that red star to the right, that's one of the main hosts in the district. You also have the Hanson Creek Formation, which is this kind of whitish unit below. And then you also have what they call the slope facies conglomerate, which is that blue unit right here. That's a different type. But again, just another, a prospective limestone. And then over on the other side of our project in this area, you have the Wenban Formation, which is, again, another prolific host, the blue units. And that's another prolific host for mines in the area. So it really comes down to there's a huge package of rock. Everything underneath the brown essentially is prospective. And what you have to do is you have to get adjacent to main mineralizing structures. And when you drill those limestones adjacent to mineralizing structures like the Mill Creek Thrust, which is what I'm wiggling across the map here, that is a major structure that cuts all the way across the western half of our project, and all of our mineralized intercepts are usually associated with that intersection point of that thrust fault. So historically, I mean, I guess over the last 3 years, NGM has drilled these holes here. These are called their framework drill holes. So they were drilling these holes specifically to test certain geologic ideas. Look for host rock, look for structure, look for all the signs that you want to see in a Carlin type gold system. And we hit some pretty significant intercepts, up to 52 meters of 0.4, 45 meters of 0.2, showing, okay, you have a big gold system here, but where is the high grade? And in this case, these 2 holes, they were over 800 meters apart. So the first hole of the year, hole 6, which is what I'm putting a little star on right here, that guy was actually coming in and doing tighter space drilling in between those two holes that hit widespread low-grade mineralization. And we actually, that's the first instance where we actually hit a high-grade zone, right? And it was really exciting for us. I mean, this is what the core looks like right here. Just zoom in quick. Classic Carlin type alteration, right? So this is right, all of this all the rock right here, that is all just fairly unaltered or relatively unaltered limestone. Then you start getting into these colored blocks and you can see us kind of getting into the zone. So you got 1.3 grams, 0.7 grams, then you get a little dead zone of 0.3, a gram and a half. But then suddenly right after that, you're into 10.4 grams, 5.5 grams. That's the kind of mineralization we want to see. Now, in the future, obviously, we would love to see 5 to 10 meters of that kind of mineralization, right? Or 20 meters of that kind of mineralization for an economic scenario. But what this shows us is, without a doubt, Swift can host high-grade gold, and it is a massive project with an already well-defined gold system over kilometers of scale. Now what we have to do is vector in on higher grades, and that's what these guys, NGM, is doing right now. Hole 7, which is the next hole being drilled, it would be drilling the equivalent of right about here. I'm going to draw a line. It's drilling in right about right here by hole 3, but it's about 500 meters south of this long section. So it's drilling the same general target. It's kind of drilling on the opposite side of what we hit with hole 6. It's now testing off the edges of hole 3, but it's about 500 meters south of the section along the projection of a major fault zone. So I'm really excited about the hole. We'll have more results coming. Probably, I'd say it's going to take till the end of November at least to finish drilling the hole, and probably early January when we come out with results.
So you didn't really hit you hit the right host rock, but you didn't really intersect it fully.
Yes.
At least based on the news release, right? Or
yeah,
if
yeah.
you could
No,
add some color.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah, and a good thing to mention. So this fault right here, the Mill Creek thrust, we were projecting it to be a little bit lower in the section. So we actually ended up hitting the Mill Creek thrust right here. And it actually ended up chopping off over half of the prospective host rocks, right? We actually want to drill all the way through the zone like hole 3 was doing. Hole 3 drilled all the way through the Hansen into the slope facies conglomerate and had mineralization all the way pretty much to bottom of hole. So we want to get in with this next drill hole. We want to make sure that Mill Creek thrust is there. We obviously want to be on the upper side of that thrust, the hanging wall side, but we want to make sure all the rocks are fully preserved. So that's why this hole is so encouraging, right? We didn't even fully test all of the host rocks that we were aiming for, and we still had a nice high-grade mineralized intercept. I have high hopes for what 7 will bring for us if we're able to test the full section.
Wait, so can you showcase again exactly where hole 7 is located?
Yeah,
so
hole 7, if you were to project it onto this section, is going to be testing something like right about like this.
So and where are you currently with hole 7? Is it finished, or are you still in hole?
We're a few thousand feet into the pre-collar, which is so essentially when we drill an RC pre-collar, the first portion of the hole right to here through the brown unit, that is all RC, which is just quick and dirty drilling. You get instead of getting core, you get chips. And the reason we do that is because there's really no economic mineralization in the upper plate or the brown unit. So we just quickly drill through it, do it as cheap as we can, and then we drill core out the bottom of the hole. So right now we're in the process. They just finished the RC pre-collar, and they're going to be coring here very soon.
So hole 7, or the second hole really, was that drilled based on the information that you got from hole 6?
Yeah.
And where you saw that you didn't really hit, you were a little bit above the host rock.
Yeah. It's actually an interesting thing. So hole 6 and 7 were planned out before they were planned out before we intersected the high grade zone in hole 6. So NGM is very methodical, right? They don't deviate from their framework drilling plan, which is a good thing, right? Like we're testing big ideas, big step outs. And in the same sense that in hole 6, the intersection in hole 6 is right above the Mill Creek thrust, also where there's another fault zone coming right through, right? So that was a very prospective zone. We're testing the same general concept in hole 7 about a kilometer away. So, some of our strongest mineralization actually came from hole 3, right? It was actually stronger mineralization in hole 3 than what we saw in hole 2. So if hole 6 hit, right, directly beside hole 2, I'm really excited to see what hole 7 will bring directly beside hole 3, but project a little bit to the south, right? To make sure.
How far away are they from each other? Hole 7, hole 6?
Hole 7 and hole 6, they're just under a kilometer apart. So this is it really highlights the scale, right? When we're looking at this section, it looks like these drill holes are right beside each other. But look at the scale right here. That's 2 kilometers from here to here, right? And hole 7, like I said, it's about 500 meters south of this section, or behind me right now. So even though I'm drawing that line right beside hole 3, I'm projecting that onto the section just to give you guys an idea where we are. So yeah, they're wide spaced holes. The thing that's really important to remember is this Mill Creek thrust. It is a very pervasive structure that runs all the way through our target area. So we know that it's mineralizing all the way through. So the trick is trying to find where that Mill Creek thrust intersects major north-south structures, right? And when you get those structures cutting through, you can end up with a mineralized zone. So that's what we're chasing right now, trying to understand both the dip and the orientation of the Mill Creek thrust, and testing all the right host rocks. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about this next hole. We'll see if it delivers, but regardless, it's been an incredibly successful program already this year. And I think we're going to see a very aggressive exploration program next year as well.
But you don't think you will drill a third hole, based on, given that we're already in November?
That's the tough part, right? So the issue, we had intended on starting the drill program in May, June, and right at the 11th hour, we ran into a permitting issue with the BLM. It wasn't something that was insurmountable, but we had to do an additional survey before we were allowed to go out there and start building roads. That delayed us a couple months. And because of the sequencing of drill rigs at Nevada Gold Mines, right, very busy company, they had to move the drill rigs that were intended to be used at Swift in June. They moved them to another project to make sure they stayed busy. So by the time we were able to get the permits complete and that drill rig back on site, we weren't even really drilling until August, right? So so that's the tough thing. We're just fighting winter right now. It's already below freezing here. That project is at over 7,500 feet elevation, so it's going to be getting a lot of snow. We'll be getting snowed out even before the end of this hole, potentially, at least, the guys having to fight bad weather. So I'd anticipate that a third hole may be difficult only just because of timing.
But based on what you know on holes from hole 6, where would you like to put the whole third, the whole, the 8th hole really on the project?
Yeah, of course. So, obviously where we're putting hole 7 is an obvious, kind of first step. That's where we really, we want to make sure we're testing far enough to the west that we're getting all of the prospective host rocks. But I think over, we're kind of looking at about a 1 kilometer in and out of the page, so a kilometer total north-south and about a kilometer east-west is where we've kind of really zoned in here, where we're seeing, widespread gold, high grade. So we want to be testing within this kind of horizon, both in and out of the page, to the north and to the south. So I think you'd see continuation of the kind of drill holes. We got 7 here. I'd like to see another hole eventually drilled, like this to just be, 100 meters or 150 meters down dip to the west of hole 6, right? And hopefully we can start hitting some thicker zones and start building on it from there.
What has been the comments from NGM based on the
They're
assays?
excited. Yeah, I mean, that's
since the assays.
Yeah. Kind of what I've, the same thing that I've been mentioning on interviews here is that, we all knew that Swift was host to a big gold system, but there was that big question mark, right? Can it produce high grade gold, right? There's lots of gold deposits all over Nevada that are massive gold systems, but they're uneconomic, right? They're just big, widespread, low grade halos of gold. In this case, we've now proven that's not the case at Swift, that it is potentially able to produce ore grade intercepts. And they're very excited about it. It means that for them, they can get more aggressive with exploration moving forward because they have confidence that they are chasing a higher grade system.
So when will you set the budget for next year?
They're currently working on budgeting right now. Budget won't be set. I think they internally will set it by the end of the year, and we'll have our first steering committee meeting in January. And I think we'll be able to discuss what their plans are for next year around then.
But so do you have any indication? I mean, because they have to spend... by the way, after hole 2 is finished, roughly how much do they have left to spend?
They'll have about, give or take, $11.5 million to spend through the end of 2026, December 31st, 2026. So it's a pretty aggressive spending schedule from here, right? And you got to remember, just like we were talking about, you can't really drill at Swift in the winter months. So, you're gonna end up with roughly, 10 months of that, 2-year period. They can't even drill, right? So in that case, they got about 14 months, over the next 2 years of potential drilling time to spend $11.5 million. So it's a pretty significant spend coming up.
Do you have an idea of how much you will spend next year?
I don't. No.
Okay, that's a fair answer.
I can suspect that they're going to be spending, hopefully through, I'd hope $5+ million, right? But again, it's down up to them. If they want to spend 3 next year and 8.5 in 2026, that's their prerogative. They're the operators.
Is there anything that would stop you from not starting to drill in May next year?
They're currently working on additional permitting. If there's additional delays to get other drill pads set up in the general area that I just mentioned before, that kind of couple kilometer area, it could delay things. It just really comes down to how quick they and how hard they push with BLM.
Perfect. I think that was it for Swift. Do you have anything else that you would add on Swift before we go to Big Blue?
No, I mean, I think the main thing I really want to point out to folks here is that they need to remember is when they're looking at this opportunity, you know, this is how discoveries start. I've been a part of multiple gold discoveries in my career, lucky enough to be a part of 10 million plus ounces. Very rarely do discoveries actually start with some huge, massive intercept, like Hercules drilled over there at their copper project, right? First drill hole hits a massive discovery. Most discoveries in Nevada are a slow and methodical process that no one even really hears about until the big hole gets drilled, right? In our case, we're messaging the story very early, but I'm pretty excited about what we're seeing. I mean, this is turning into, and it has the potential to turn into a discovery of real significance in Nevada. And we're in the right address, the right host rocks, and we have, the third largest gold producer in the world running and funding the exploration for us. So it's a pretty exciting opportunity.
Let's move on to Big Blue. So since we
it.
talked, you have you have released the results from the IP survey at Big Blue. Could you walk us through it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Big Blue is a 100% owned Ridgeline project. We staked it in late 2022, rounded out the project, and announced it in 2023. It is directly north of our Selena project, and it's hosted within a very old, well-known but not recently explored porphyry belt that we're trying to kind of get back up and get people excited about. So this is an overview of the project. Important to point out, everything at the Medicine Springs project is owned by Reyna Silver, which is Lauren and Peter McGaw. They've been exploring that project for about the same amount of time, and they believe that they have a significant CRD discovery coming together on their portion of the project. And something important to point out, you can't have a CRD without having a porphyry source. And we think our porphyry source is here at Delker, and again, undercover at the Ohio target. So at the Delker mine, it produced 94,000 pounds of copper at 6.2% in the early 1900s across 3 different mines along this trend. And nothing's really been done on that project for over 100 years since. So here's what that old the Delker adit looks like. You can see the high-grade copper on the surface. There's our VP, Mike Harp. Got a big smile on looking at the copper. This shows with geophysics, okay, you have 2 geophysical highs in gravity here, right? Showing, okay, this could be your potential porphyry zones. You can see we've got, high-grade copper and gold in the Ohio target area, up to 16 grams per ton gold, with visible gold, and then much higher grade copper in the Delker mine area, which is closer to surface. We think that's kind of the first place to start exploring. Here's a magnetic survey, shows, okay, not very good resolution. You got 2 big red blobs. What does that mean? Well, we reprocessed the data and we got a higher resolution map put together here. And what it shows is you have a big magnetic high right here at Ohio and another magnetic high sitting right underneath the Delker target. So we're going to look at a cross section that cuts all the way across the project of our IP survey. And what the IP survey showed us is you have a significant chargeability high that sits directly underneath one of the mines that sits on the project. And we believe that high is going to continue to the north. We're going to be adding more IP lines in December of this year. But what's really exciting here is this is the old Skarn Hill mine, where we're getting up to 6% copper at surface. And there's this big QFP dike swarm. And all you need to know about that is that essentially you have all these intrusives that are bleeding up and mineralizing that mine at surface, right? That Skarn. But that's got to have a source from somewhere. And no one had ever looked at depth. And what we were able to prove is, okay, there's a 1 kilometer wide chargeability high here that's of similar tenor to the original chargeability high that Chris Paul and the folks at Hercules saw when they drilled the Hercules discovery, or the Leviathan discovery hole last year, right? Around 20 to 25 millivolts. So, we know that there's something very significant down here. To get a chargeability high of that significance, you have to have some sulfides floating around, we think in the porphyry target at depth. So when we step we're going to look at resistivity now. Now, resistivity helps show our alteration and our structure, right? So what we're seeing is, we don't have a resistive high at the porphyry target itself, which is to be expected. But right in the fault corridor that bleeds up into the Skarn Hill mine, you have a big resistive high. Well, what does that resistive high mean? It means that you're getting silication, fluid flow, mineralization, and skarn formation bleeding up into that old mine, and it's directly coming from this porphyry target right there. So that's what gets us really exciting. We're seeing all the right things coming together. You're seeing coincident resistivity anomalies that coincide very well with our chargeability highs. And if we step to the north, we're going to go about, I'll show you here, we're going to step up. We're going to now go from Skarn Hill, which was right here. That's where our section line came across. We're going to go about a kilometer to the north over to where Mike's standing here. And this is what we see at Delker. We'll kind of point out there's no data right here. Reason being, our line didn't extend all the way across the valley. We have to extend our IP lines another 2 kilometers to the west, or to the west, to ensure that we cover this area. And I think once we get that data, we're going to see a similar chargeability high of that porphyry signature sitting right off the edge of that Delker mine. So again, we're seeing really nice charge high.
Wait, could you explain again why you need to extend the IP lines? Because you already showcased a chargeability high at the Delker porphyry.
Yeah, we see it a kilometer to the south down at the Skarn Hill, but we want to tie it all together, right? So if we see a chargeability high that's similar to Skarn Hill that sits right here, we can start modeling that potential porphyry target over more than a kilometer at that point, right? And it really helps us with our drill targeting. The other reason is we're seeing a 25 millivolt high at Skarn Hill. What if we do a survey here and it's 40 millivolts, right? What if it's actually considerably stronger? That might be where we would put our first drill hole down to test the target, right? If we see,
is this Skarn Hill or is it's not Delker?
This is the Delker mine. Yeah. So Skarn Hill is a kilometer to the south. Delker mine is a kilometer to the north of Skarn Hill. So, we're seeing the same general trend along that north-south trend that I'm showing. But we need to extend our lines to get more data in this direction, right? You can see the IP lines kind of come down into a cone. The reason is that you're essentially shooting the electrical charge into the Earth's surface from all the sensors that are at surface. And that electrical charge is traveling down from the widest point on your survey, and it's connecting in with the lines, right? And what that causes is it then forces you to, it forces the data to kind of narrow as you go deeper. So in order to get a wider section, we have to expand our lines farther in each direction, and that'll get us a better.
And that will be done in December.
That's getting done in December. Yeah. So that'll
give us. Can we go back to the past slide?
Yeah. That'll give us, we're going to go a kilometer to the south over to, let's see, we're going a kilometer south now, back in the section, back towards Skarn Hill. We're trying to recreate this right here. And to do that at Delker, we have to extend our line this direction. So that's why we'll be adding to it and give us higher resolution on the survey and a better confidence going into drill program next year.
Okay, and Skarn Hill, that below or at the...
Let me show you here. Yeah, we'll... So if we go up to surface again,
yes,
it's all connected. So that structural corridor that you see in the sections, it's trending like this, right? That's those dashed lines that we're showing in the section. We're looking at Skarn Hill. That's the big long section that shows the chargeability high. Then we moved up.
That's
to
where
Delker.
You have the Delker porphyry 20 to 25 millivolt.
At Skarn Hill. But we believe that probably you see continuation of that porphyry all the way up to the Delker as well. We just need to extend
okay.
Yeah. So it's all about getting higher resolution on the survey, right? Until we can make sure that we see the same general trend, both at Skarn Hill and at Delker, right? We want to make sure we confirm that. Once we do, that'll give us more confidence for putting a drill program and testing between those two mines and hopefully hitting some porphyry mineralization at depth. So we're actually pretty reasonable, right? So I'm going to show you here this section. We have high grade 6% skarn mineralization at Skarn Hill at surface, right? And we see it all the way through this 200 meter wide structural corridor. So we can start drilling mineralization from surface and drill across that structural corridor. And I'm pretty confident we're going to be able to hit some really nice high grade copper near surface, right? Then the actual target itself, the top of the porphyry target, that's about 450 meters below surface. So it's deep, but it's certainly not 800 meters, right? And we believe that we'll hit, potential skarn, carbonate skarn around the margins of that as well, right? So there's a good chance that we could hit 200 meters down, we could start getting into skarn mineralization and then drop into porphyry mineralization when we get into the porphyry target itself. So, the Delker area, Skarn Hill, Delker, there's good potential to drill high-grade copper skarn from surface and then transition into porphyry at depth.
And the plan is still to drill, around 6 holes?
Yeah, somewhere in that three to 6 holes. I think we'll probably phase the program. First, what I want to do is I want to test the structural corridor. Beneath Skarn Hill or beneath Delker. We'll see which one ends up winning out. And then we want to make sure we put a hole directly into the porphyry target itself, right, just off to the west. So we'd probably start with like a 3-hole fence, whether it be at Skarn Hill or at Delker. We're still not sure. Depends what the IP shows us here in December. We'd start with that 3-hole fence. If we hit some really nice high-grade skarn in the structural zone, through here, and then we follow up with a great porphyry hole, fingers crossed, at Delker, or at the actual porphyry itself, we'd certainly add more holes. But yeah, I think we do at least a 3-hole program to start.
Okay, and how much do you think that would cost? I mean, it's still less than 1,000 meters per hole, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
somewhere
So
in that range.
we're looking somewhere in that kind of 1.2 to 1.5 million Canadian, depending on how difficult the drilling conditions are. We've never actually drilled this project, so if it drills really well, it'll be very cheap. Much cheaper than we anticipate. But on the conservative side, somewhere in that 1.5, we'll get 3 holes for sure to around 1,000 meters depth.
How do you plan to fund that?
We're working on a few different things right now. So we have potentials for either advancing through strategic routes and doing financings with high net worth or corporates, which we're assessing at the moment. And we can also just go kind of the standard private placement route, which we've done in the past. And I'm pretty confident that we can raise whatever capital we're looking for to do the program. But we're not in any huge rush just yet to jump in and do a financing. We want to make sure we do it at the right time.
But the quantum would probably be 3 million, right?
Yeah, somewhere in that range, I think would be a reasonable estimate, 3 to 4 million, depending on the level of interest. So that would give me a comfortable buffer that we could go and drill Big Blue, as well as not have to immediately run back to market, to allow hopefully some very aggressive drilling get done at both Swift, Black Ridge, and the Selena projects by our partners. So it's important to point out there are guaranteed spending requirements for next year for $1.5 million at our Black Ridge project that need to be satisfied. Our Selena project is moving forward very quickly, and I will expect to see a drill program next summer there as well. And then, of course, at Swift, I think hopefully we're going to see a very aggressive program by Barrick as well, or NGM, sorry. So yeah, we're gonna be seeing a lot of drilling being done by our partners, and I want to make sure that we can test Big Blue and then have enough capital on hand to make sure that we can watch and see how all those programs go, and hopefully one or more discoveries develops through those partnerships as well.
What's the preliminary timeline for testing Big Blue?
I'm hoping to get at it in February.
And all permits are you're fully permitted, or you have the drill pads permitted?
Yeah, fully permitted. It really comes down to just getting this IP, the last of the IP work done to round out and infill the model. And then from there, it just comes down to scheduling out drilling and making sure it fits into our financing timeframe. So it could start as early as February. We could push it out longer if we want to push our financing timeline out further as well.
Well, by the way, the empty survey on Selena, how's that progressing? Have you started it, or when will you start it?
Yeah, let me show you right now. So the MT survey is just starting out. I was actually going to probably do a press release next week just for disclosure for everyone. And right now we're doing a survey that in this blue box right here, we're doing an MT survey that cuts all the way across the project and also infills all the way through the broken egg target, which will hopefully allow us to not only see the primary target, which is the chinchilla sulfide area here, and image hopefully semi-massive sulfide mineralization at depth beside the porphyry, the Butte Valley porphyry, but it'll also allow us to image the main thrust fault that cuts all the way across the project and daylights at surface in the broken egg area. And that'll give us a really good idea. Again, these thrust faults are very common in Nevada, and they're very important fluid flow zones, right? So when you look at this in 3D, the idea is to image for deep sulfides at the chinchilla sulfide target, and then also track this thrust fault, which is a clear control on mineralization, track it all the way to surface with the MT. And that'll allow us to model it over a 4-kilometer space all the way across the property. So when you look at this in, what could this potential be? I think we've looked at this before. This is an overlay of the Taylor sulfide deposit that's owned by South 32, our partners at Selena. And what you can see is that you could actually fit the entire Taylor sulfide deposit, which is one of the largest CRDs in the world, within just the Chinchilla sulfide footprint. We have one drill hole that was drilled in 2022 that hit a 50-meter zone of low grade with 2 high-grade pops within that of up to 3 meters of 600 grams silver equivalent. And we never drilled deeper to test it due to financing reasons. So we need to image this with the MT, get in and do much deeper holes all the way through this target area. And I think there's a really good chance that we're going to see some significant mineralization develop in the Chinchilla sulfide area as well.
What's the timeline for going live with your new project?
That one probably in the new year. I think at this point we're really focusing on our success that we're having at Swift and supporting our Swift or our Selena project that's being funded by South 32. So that's kind of looks like more of a 2025 thing. Okay. And there's good reasons for that, which I can't talk about now, but yeah, there's a good reason for that, and it'll all come out in the right time.
Where do you envision Ridgeline Minerals in a year from now?
Oh, geez, good question. I hope that we're partners in a major discovery at the Swift project to start. On top of that, like I said, Black Ridge is getting drilled, Selena's getting drilled. There's great potential for multiple discoveries to be forming within our portfolio over the next 12 months.